Welcome back to BaldHeaded Metal, guys, and welcome back to another Meshuggah reaction from the new album called Immutable. That's the song Light the Shortening Fuse. For those who are fans of this channel, you kind of see my transformation from kind of not totally getting what the band is about to really appreciating what they stand for to exactly just loving what I was hearing with the album Obscene. And I actually heard the Abysmal Eye song and I did like it. And let's see what they do with the new single here. Coming in as a new fan of Meshuggah, but obviously an old school fan of metal overall, just getting used to their style. But I don't hold back, guys, for those who are new. I try to express my opinion 100%, what I like, what I dislike. So that's a more interesting conversation going around the reaction and not just me going, whoa, cool, just put some kind of a more input to have an interesting conversation. Anywho, let's do it. I can tell it's going to be an album I'm going to enjoy because it reminds me a lot of Obscene in a sense of accessibility, not necessarily sound. It actually sounds quite different from Obscene, but it has that accessibility that's, for me, easier to get into as a fan because I've been having a lot of trouble of understanding the rhythm patterns and the way they write songs and, being used to a lot of thrash metal as well. But these Swedish guys really, I don't know what it is about Sweden, Finland, and like Norway producing some of the best metal in the world, period. What is in the water in those countries? But they just do such a good job. I really appreciate everything that I've heard from these countries. But anywho, let's keep going. So far, good. I kind of, the way I look at sometimes at Meshuggah, and hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from, it reminds me of like a really good industrial techno song, meaning that industrial techno in general, right? It tends to have a one beat that it builds on, or sometimes changes a little bit. I mean, I think it's the case with house music. It's the case with electronic music. Is the idea of building on a rhythm, on a beat, and changing it up just a little bit, but you never really deviate too far from it, or at the very least you keep the same similar rhythms. And in that case, Meshuggah very much reminds me of that in a metal format, along with their polyrhythmic style that they've kind of put on top of the band, because technically speaking, just looking from like a layman's term, there's not a lot of riffs, right? And they change very subtly. So for me, like when I was looking at before with that one eye, you were kind of looking, I was like, well, nothing is really happening. That's kind of how I heard it before. It's just when I heard repeat praise for this band, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe I passed by an element. And you start seeing it has this kind of correlation to me to this electronic music of building the rhythm. And sometimes it does the same rhythm differently in a different, well, I guess, measure or beats per minute, whatever it is, time signature. And sometimes it just changes it up just subtly. If you don't listen to it, you'll miss it. So I started appreciating that element of this band. And I also got to say, is this been a trend for the band to become a little bit more accessible? Because I know Catch 33 is not accessible. And even I understand even among fans, it's a very kind of, some people really, really love it. Some people don't really like it. I don't see myself liking it. I tend to don't like the experimental albums of bands like, I remember when Judas Priest released Nostradamus. I don't like that album. I like 3 songs on that album. My brother loves it. I tend to like, hey, I listen to Amon Amarth for this, and hopefully it's done well, and then that's why I come back to this band. I'm a little bit more linear. I know my limitations in that sense. Sometimes I try to break out of them, but I'm a little bit more linear. Yeah, I gotta say I like this more than Abysmal Eye. It's with here I don't have a lot to say because also I don't have the lyrics in front of me, which I should have pulled them up in the beginning. Perhaps I would have more to say in the sense of the way it's making me feel, but it seems like lyrics is a very big part of this band. They just add to the overall atmosphere. So far, like I said, I'm enjoying it. I also enjoy their badass look in the photo with all of them with those epic fucking beards they had. They look absolutely raw. It's just going to be interesting to see what the full album is going to be like. I've always felt like this band is meant to be listened to like an album from beginning to the end because it's just the way everything's kind of built on top of one another. But my hook, just like many people's hook, was Bleed. And even then, I didn't like it in the beginning. Way back when, I think maybe like 5 years ago, I heard it and I was like, what the fuck? So this is like stupid, and it just I kind of turned it off. And as time went by and I kept coming back to it, kept being kind of resistant, I eventually clicked. I've been listening to Obstinate quite a lot, and I haven't jumped into other albums just yet because I've been reviewing a lot of albums on this channel, going through just a lot of records coming out. Holy fuck. And this one now is coming out in April. You know, also kind of, for some reason, just, I don't know if I said this before, you guys can correct me if I did. It kind of also hit me that something that this band does is, like you take, for example, a band like Persephone on I'm trying to think of a really technical band, Atheist, or like just take a very technical, Yngwie Malmsteen, I don't know. there's technicality through riffing, through soloing, through all these elements going on, and from fast drumming to like they try to impress you with everything. And Meshuggah seems to me like the style of it is initially it's stripped down. It's let's get to the almost tribal basic root of music and what it is, but build complexity on the rhythm itself. The way kind of the beat is gonna almost fuck with you a little bit, right? It's like the type signature. Sometimes the guitars don't sync up with the drums, but then they do on like the fourth measure, and like all these things that are happening where it's like you try to bang your head and you don't get it, and then boom, you just get into the rhythm, and it's like, oh, you get what's going on. And I guess it'll be even more hard to do this on a level where you're also playing and technical and doing these kinds of things. I think it would just be too much. It'd be an overload of senses. So it felt like they've stripped down the music a little bit in itself and made guitars, like you guys correct, and made the guitars almost like a percussion instrument, and just has this kind of very raw feel to the music, which I always complain that a lot of music is missing nowadays. Like even some of the best bands that I like nowadays, they just lack that certain unrefined raw edge that heavy metal was kind of known for when it began in its inception, which is why I listen to like thrash metal. They tend to keep that raw edge to their music, especially the good ones. It's hard to mimic the feeling of hearing Painkiller again, Rain and Blood again, or Rust in Peace. They just had this energy that bands nowadays who've increased their technicality just don't have that edge. At least my opinion. You guys can kind of chime in on that as well. But yeah, great single. I'm liking what I'm hearing. It's a good feeling that I think I'm going to like this album, because both singles I like are right off the bat, which has been kind of a difficult one for me with this band overall. And like I said, I promised to you guys that I will keep listening to their albums. I've kind of been going through a bunch of different backup, like I've layaway albums I've put away that, based on your recommendations, based on albums coming up, based on discovering new bands. Holy fuck, am I just overloaded now, and I love it. Guys, make sure to take care of yourselves, stay safe out there, and most of all, keep it metal.